Lately throughout my filmmaking journey, I've been on the hunt for gear and equipment that really allow me to add character to what I try to film. And that's put me on the hunt for a lot of older vintage lenses that aren't necessarily as clinically sharp as sort of the new Cine lenses you'll see out there. But this Cine modded Helios 44M has literally turned into my favorite lens that I've ever used. And in my opinion, makes everything that I pointed at feel like a movie. So this is a 60s Soviet lens that's a close sibling to another Helios that I've talked about on this channel before. However, this particular lens has been Cine modded by Iron Glass with a few different features we'll get into. But even without the modifications done to it, picking this lens up can offer a very different character to your image than even what the 44-2 will offer you. And just like that lens, this 44M is made in the M42 mount, which I've adapted to EF in order to be able to use with the speed booster on my FX30. Which not only gives me an extra stop of light, but it gives me a wider field of view than what the 58mm comes in. The aperture's been declicked on this lens, as well as gears being added to the focus and aperture rings. And this lens, just like the 44-2, offers a really swirly bokeh wide open at f2. Although the characteristics of the bokeh is going to be different with each lens. And the thing I like about this lens, as well as other vintage lenses when using them on my FX30, is because the 26 megapixel sensor in my camera is excessively sharp sometimes. And I like this lens to sort of soften up my image a bit without me necessarily having to do a bunch of dehancing in post, which I still use, but it allows me to dial it back on the post-processing side and give a bit of a natural look. And there's not really too much I don't like about this lens. There might be one thing. So while I do like the fact that the aperture is declicked and that there's a gear ring on it, the problem is that the way this lens was designed, in order to read the aperture on the line that's in the middle here, the numbers actually sit on the aperture ring where the gear ring sits, which makes it impossible to see exactly what aperture you're sitting at, and you just have to eyeball it. And that is one thing disappointing about this lens, is that you're never really going to know exactly what aperture you're sitting at, which is not a complete deal breaker for me. I'm able to deal with that as long as the lens brings me the character and image that I'm looking for. And where I've adapted it to EF, I'm pretty much able to use it on any system I have as long as I have a speed booster for it. All right, so I switched over to the computer for a second. Apologize for the audio. I just wanted to show you guys a couple of raw stills that I took with the FX30 using this lens, just to give you a kind of, real-time example of the type of bokeh and just character that you're going to get out of this lens. It's just a couple of stills I took. This was at Wine Cellar Park, right up the street from my house here. And so you see in this picture, I have the lens pretty much wide open, just to kind of give you the idea of what it looks like all the way at f2. You can kind of see the swirly bokeh here. I wanted to make sure to focus in on the green moss right here in the middle. And you can see that kind of, real creamy and swirly bokeh that's really soft. And here's another photo I took. This is just of, kind of the little creek there. And you can see I tried to set up some foreground here in the front here on the right side, and then I was focusing on the rock here, and you can really see just between 2.8 and wide open at f2, you really get a lot of distinguished character in this lens. I really love this lens a lot, even for photos. I'm not the best photographer in the world. I just went out and took a couple stills. These aren't anything special, but just to kind of give you an idea of what you're really going to get from this lens when you go out in the real world with it. Here's another shot I took. So yeah, this shot I'll give you a better example. Just another one where I kind of, tried to focus on the, the green, vegetation moss thing right here. And, a lot of the creaminess in the back, swirly bokeh. It's a little bit different than what the 44-2 offers you. But yeah, when you kind of zoom out and look at it from a whole, I've actually cropped in on this image a little bit from where it was originally, but you can still kind of see the example where, it's not as tack sharp at wide open f2 as it would be at sort of like a 2.8. If you want to take away some of that creaminess or in a lot of those flares and stuff like that, you really want to be at about an f2.8 with it. Even with having an external monitor just wide open, this lens is super soft to the point to where sometimes your focus peaking just isn't going to work that well, and you're just going to have to eyeball it the best way you can. And this is really just another pickup on my journey as I try to build out a complete vintage lens kit. I'm definitely not afraid of using these lenses on paid jobs. I've used them on everything you can think of. I don't see myself going away from vintage lenses anytime soon. It's very much a style stylistic choice on why I use these lenses. But these lenses are always a good budget option for someone looking to add a little bit of flair to their image and doesn't necessarily have the money to spend on these new cine lenses like the Blaze R's and things of that nature. Which, full transparency, I happen to fall into that crowd a little bit.
Yeah, $1 bill. Oh, I thought you were poor.
But all jokes aside, I really do love these lenses. If you want to pick one up, you're definitely going to have to go on eBay to search for one. Make sure you're getting one that's cine modded so you're not dealing with that annoying clicked aperture. Beyond that though, these lenses are solid. I really love them. They've been awesome since I had them. I use these more than my actual Sony lenses, to be honest with you. I have a few more vintage lenses that I've really been looking at that I'm interested in picking up, and I can't wait to get those and really bring you guys some content on that. But hopefully this video demystifies any questions you had about these type of lenses, whether they're good or not. And hopefully this video helps you to get out there and just film and not let gear stop you from making that piece of content you want. That's enough of me talking, guys. Appreciate everybody that made it this far. If you've got this lens or a lens like this, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about this lens, how it's worked for you. Let me know what kind of vintage set you're running. If you think I missed anything on this lens, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. If you can, hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. It really helps me put out more content for you guys like this. And just remember, the only reason that piece of art that you want isn't out is because you haven't pressed record. See you guys on set. Peace out.